and we expect others to move at our speed. And it says that speed is more important than connection. You being on my schedule is more important than me being connected to you. It also shows up in our expectations because we expect children to regulate their emotions like they're adults. We're impatient for child expressions of emotions. We expect our spouse to immediately get over a conflict because this, continued distance here, this is inconvenient to me. You're making me feel guilty. Or we expect instant change. And the reality is that growth takes patience, it takes repetition, it takes time, it takes practice. And that's something we don't have a lot of tolerance for. Impatience shows up in our reaction to mistakes that our family members make. It means that we overreact when they spill something, when they mess something up, when they forget something, when they do something that is childish. And I know that my husband has been patient with me. I tend to struggle with impatience, if you can't tell. But I remember one time in particular, I forgot to pay a bill. I just completely forgot to pay it. And I, get the notice. Of course, I'm feeling terrible about it. And my husband was so kind about it. He was like, that's okay. That's fine. I'm sure that you'll pay it. I'm sure that it'll be fine. He was just so kind. And that just small gesture of kindness made such an impression on me, whereas so often our impatience just tends to roll right over. It also shows up in our reaction to mistakes when we just make any small little failure, any small little mistake into the biggest catastrophe. Oh no, I can't believe this happened again. Oh, you ran over the curb. I'm talking to every wife out there who's front seat driving for her husband, right? That's impatience where we do that. And it also shows up in our words. We shape identity instead of guiding behavior. And we use shame-based statements when we're impatient. Impatience says things like, why do you always fill in the blank? You never listen. What is wrong with you? You are so fill in the blank. You're so dramatic. You're so messy. You're so lazy. You're so infuriating. You're so frustrating. Anytime we feel that impatience, we start attributing character qualities to our child, to our spouse. And that language confuses who they are with what they did. And that is really hard. That's a really hard thing to do. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. Impatience also shows up in digital distraction, where we choose our screen over engaging with people around us. It shows up when we are multitasking during meaningful moments. We're watching something while we're supposed to be engaged in something else. And we are honestly more patient with our screens than we are with our families. And we've got to make sure that we have patience, just as much patience for our families in real life. It also shows up in resentment and withdrawal, because impatience isn't always explosive. It's not always the why did you always, why did you never. Sometimes it's stonewalling. It's just, I don't have the patience to deal with you, so I'm not going to deal with you. I'm just going to emotionally shut down. I'm just going to avoid any difficult conversations because I don't have the patience for that. And how often do we say those words to our families? I don't have the patience for this today. I don't have the patience for you. I don't have the patience to deal with this right now. Ooh, it is such a convicting thing for sure. And that passive impatience is still harmful. And when we show impatience, when we have a home atmosphere, a home culture of impatience, it absolutely impacts our relational health. And it does it in these ways. First of all, it reduces emotional safety, because when family members feel like you don't have the patience to deal with them, then they think, okay, I'm not going to share my feelings. I'm definitely not going to admit to you when I make a mistake. And I'm going to be really careful about who I am, what I say, what I do around you, because I don't have that emotional safety. And when you don't have emotional safety, you start to lose intimacy in those relationships. When you have impatience, it also damages trust, because it's saying, I can't trust you to grow. I can't trust you to handle this. I don't trust that you're going to get through this okay. And it's just, you start to think, I'll never be good enough. Nothing I do is right. It's just easier to hide or to lie than to disappoint you. Impatience takes away our connections because relationships are best when they are in that emotional safety, when they're in that presence. And it's so hard when we're saying, like, how are you doing? It's just, did you do your chores? Did you do what I asked you to do? Did you take out the trash? Did you feed the dog? And that relationship starts to become functional. And it's just, that's when you just start to, it's transactional. You just have tasks and you start modeling performance-based love because my value is only based on how well I perform. That is so the opposite of God's love. That is slow to anger, that is gracious, that is patient. And over time, when we have a culture of impatience in our home, children who are raised in an environment where their caregivers are often impatient, they become anxious or fearful because they fear if I make a mistake, it's going to trigger my parent to be frustrated with me. They also learn to rush through life, that speed is the most important thing. I just need to get through these things as fast as possible. And patience also teaches our kids to hide their struggles, to hide their pain, because they think, I need to fix myself before I can be loved again. And they start to develop this very harsh inner critic. That this is so hard. This is so hard. But when we have that impatient voice, it becomes the inner voice of the person we're speaking to. Hurry up. You're behind. You're not enough. I don't have the patience to deal with you today. And then we start to translate those struggles into our spiritual identity. And patience also is very deadly to a marriage. It reduces empathy because you don't really want to understand each other. You just want to fix each other so that we can get past this. Let me just fix this because I don't have the patience to deal with it. And it minimizes those emotional connections because if you feel rushed, if you feel dismissed, if you share something, if you share, hey, I'm feeling really disconnected from you, hey, I'm feeling really discouraged lately, and there's just, it's met with impatience, like, why? Why are you feeling that? What, you don't have any reason to feel that, or why don't you just do this and fix this? It's going to reduce those emotional connections. One of the most powerful things that it does in the worst way possible is that it normalizes contempt. When we're talking to each other, these small annoyances, all of a sudden they just become character assassinations. And I've seen researchers that say contempt is one of the #1 predictors of divorce. When you reach that stage where I just have contempt because you have just, tried my patience so much, I don't have the patience for you anymore. And it replaces that relationship with scorekeeping because it comes out in phrases like, well, you should already know this, or why haven't you changed this yet? Or I'm tired of dealing with this. I'm tired of this. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm tired of talking about this. That's impatience. And that is just absolute death for intimacy, because intimacy requires patience and time and attention and gentleness. So when we look at this through a biblical lens, we see that impatience is not just a relational problem. This is a spiritual formation issue. Because when we have impatience, we're relying on ourselves more than we're relying on the Holy Spirit. We are reflecting pride and control and using fear as a mechanism rather than responding with humility and love and trust. And it breaks unity and it misrepresents God's character to our families. And that is one of the most sobering things I think that we should think about, because we are called to steward our family's spiritual formation. And when we're just modeling impatience, that is not God's character. That is not God's heart. We see spiritual growth is gradual. Sanctification is lifelong. We are going to be working on this our whole lives. And if we go back to 1 Corinthians 13, we know that love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. We cannot microwave our spiritual maturity. We cannot have it instantly. God uses slow processes on purpose. And again, we look at this impatience as an epidemic, and sometimes we mislabel our impatience and we call it stress. We say, I just feel so stressed. I just have so much stress right now. I feel so stressed out. when really, if we're honest with ourselves, we say a lot of that stress may be self-induced. And really, we're talking about, I'm feeling impatient right now. And there is something that we can do about that. We may not be able to do something about our circumstances. Those may be beyond our control. But we absolutely can control our response. And that is really important to do with our kids, and with our spouses in our daily life. Because when we come back from this next break, I'm going to take a deep dive on how impatience really starts to cultivate shame in your family. And that is that identity that we're talking about. When we're impatient and we say, why do you always, why do you never, what is wrong with you, you're so fill in the blank. What we're doing is we're telling our family member who they are. And the biblical truth of that is that God never shames us into holiness. He's not going to shame us into patience. He corrects with truth and compassion. And we cannot generalize a character trait that comes from a behavioral struggle. So often we have a spouse who's struggling with something in particular, struggling with spiritual formation, struggling with developing a fruit of the Spirit. Our kids are struggling with that. And all of a sudden we speak words of death over them, making that behavioral struggle all of a sudden become their identity. Instead of speaking words of life over them, saying, I'm going to be patient to bear this struggle with you because I am confident that he who began a good work will be faithful to complete it. I'll give you some more tips on the other side of this break.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real. And yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it. The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
This is Franklin Graham, and we've got an idea for Christmas, and that is to fill a shoebox for a child somewhere in the third world. These children live in poverty, and what I'm asking you to do is just take a shoebox and fill it with items for a child. Put toys, school supplies, and then we give these boxes out, and we do this in Jesus' name. And put your picture in there. Put your address in there. Maybe the kids can write you back, but we need you to be a part of it. God bless you. Thank you so very much.
Visit SamaritansPurse.org/OCC to get involved. You can be part of sharing the love of Jesus with children in need around the world. Operation Christmas Child is selecting gift-filled shoeboxes during National Collection Week, November 17th through the 24th. Make your shoebox gift fun, full, and personalized by filling it with toys, school supplies, and personal care items. Then bring a packed shoebox to a drop-off location. Children will hear the gospel alongside your gift and be invited to join a discipleship program. Visit SamaritansFirst.org/OCC to learn more.
So right now may be the perfect time you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join Medi-Share and save even more than usual. For many families, joining Medi-Share means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people. But what's more, Medi-Share members like it. We know this from member surveys. They like it a lot. It's a proven thing now. Medi-Share has been around for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing, too. If you join before November 15th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they will waive your application fee. So you save $100 right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. Again, the deadline is November 15th, so call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
And we're talking about how Jesus responds to us, God's character, and responding to us with patience. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit. And in this series, 52 Habits for Healthy Families, every Friday, we've been talking about a habit to help your family's relationship, their emotional, their spiritual, their physical, their mental health. And impatience is one of the most deadly forces that we can have in our family. It has a lot of negative impacts, and this is one of the reasons that God calls us to develop fruits of the Spirit. We need to do that through spiritual discipline. It's not easy. There is no instant fix, and as I said at the top of the program, if you're asking God for patience, He's going to give you the opportunity to practice it, not some mystical infusion of instant patience. That doesn't happen. And one of the ways this shows up so much in families, and I see this, for me as a healthcare professional, I see this manifesting itself in mental health concerns, in emotional health concerns, and psychological health concerns. Because when we are impatient with the behavior of our children, when we are impatient with the behavior of our spouse, one of the most common and most damaging ways that impatience shows up is when we label that behavior as identity. When we interpret that action, we have such intolerance for that action right there, that behavior, that we all of a sudden start talking about who they are instead of what they're doing, because we have no patience to wait over time. And over time, when we start to give these labels, that's when you're talking about shaping self-concept, emotional health, spiritual formation. That's when we're talking about having anxiety, having depression, all of those contributory factors. So what does that mean? What does labeling behavior as identity actually mean? Well, it means instead of addressing the behavior, we assign a character label to the person. So if we're talking about behavior, we say, hey, you didn't clean your room like we agreed you would today. An identity label goes in, sees the room that's still messy, and says, you're so lazy. I can't believe you did this. Behavior is something that a person does. Identity is someone they believe that they are. And some of those negative identity labels we may say to our family members, oh, you're so dramatic. Oh, you're so selfish. You're so disorganized. You're so messy. You just never listen. You always overreact. And those turn a single moment that can require patience to deal with into a permanent identity. And those statements convey, this is who you are. I don't believe that you can change. And we may have even comparison-based identity in that. Maybe we say, well, your sister never acts that way. Your brother never has this problem. So-and-so's spouse never has this problem. The other kids don't do this. That comparison is so damaging. It confuses identity and development because children are in process. They're supposed to be immature. That's why they need us. That's why God gave them parents. And identity labels punish children for being developmentally normal. We know that foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. We know that kids are going to make mistakes. And we don't want it to become that internal voice. We don't want it to damage their relationship safety. We don't want shame to replace that healthy conviction. Instead of, I made a mistake and I'm empowered to fix it, and I'm going to work on it and be patient until I learn this skill, until I learn this character trait. We see that God uses conviction, but Satan uses shame. And we see when God handles behavior versus identity, we expect God to handle our issues in a way that we often don't extend that grace to someone else. Because God corrects our actions without condemning our identity. He can discipline us while still telling us, convicting us about the behavioral struggles that we're having, but He still speaks life. I mean, think about the story of Gideon. Gideon was fearful, but God called him a mighty warrior. We think about Peter. He denied Jesus, but God didn't call him that. He said, on this rock I will build my church. We see the prodigal son who expected to return home and begged to be a servant, and yet his father restored him as a son. God speaks to who we can be with His help, not who we are at our worst moment. We know that God speaks identity over us, that we are God's workmanship, not his instant product, not his just add water people. We are God's workmanship created with purpose. We are beloved children of God. We are being transformed into Christ's image. That is a process that takes patience. We are not instantly transformed. It takes time. And if God doesn't label us by our failures, we shouldn't label our families by ours either. We absolutely shouldn't do that. What we should do is speak truth with patience. We should offer grace with patience. We should separate that identity from behavior, replace the labels with constructive, specific feedback, and then have patience and grace as that person is learning. So instead of saying, you're so irresponsible, say, I see you forgot your assignment again. Let's talk about a system to help you succeed. What do you need from me to help you be successful in remembering that? Instead of, you're always so dramatic, you can say to your child, hey, I can see your feelings are really big right now. Let's work on expressing them with calmness. If they say, saying words of speaking identity in alignment with God's truth says, you're capable, you are growing, you are loved no matter what. I see progress. I have faith that God will be faithful to complete the good work that he has started in you. And we want to correct the moment while protecting that person. That's so important. So when you feel like there's a behavior that tries your patience, for me, it's like I see clean clothes in the dirty laundry hamper. Maybe it's something as simple as that is going to make me impatient in a heartbeat. Or maybe it's something more serious. Maybe it is a character trait. Identify that behavior. Say, this is the behavior. And then state the impact. Talk about how it is impacting the family dynamic, how it is impacting their life. And then express belief and their ability to grow. Express patience. So identify the behavior, state the impact, and then express belief in their ability to grow. So what does that look like? This says something like, say your kid is just extremely disrespectful and they are fighting with their sister. You can say, you spoke disrespectfully and that really hurt your sister. I know that you're capable of practicing kindness. Let's try this conversation again. That takes patience. It is much easier to go off on a rant and to say, why are you doing this? I've told you this a million times. Why can't you just do what I ask you to do? And look at what this is doing. And I'm so frustrated with you. And that may feel good in the moment, but you know as well as I do that in the moments after that, just the feelings of yuckiness just start to pile in, and then you feel guilty, and then you're going back and say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to be so angry. But you have a legitimate point, but now you've lost your credibility, now you've lost your authority. So we just need to name that behavior, speak about how it impacted the person involved, and then express confidence in their ability to learn and to get it right. Because parenting is for the long game. Marriage is for the long game. When we rush and focus on how are you serving me today, we forget on how are we learning and growing over time. And for kids, we are raising adults. We are not managing children. Growth is not linear. Kids are going to repeat struggles. Sometimes it's a messy looping back and forth. We've had 2 weeks that are great. Now we have 2 days that are awful. That's normal. That happens. And we know that relationship-based influence lasts so much longer than rule-based control. So we've got to show patience in that, prioritizing connection over correction. When we have impatience, it weakens our home. It weakens our family bonds. Patience strengthens it. And that's what we've got to do. So what are some ways that you can flex your patience muscles? What are some ways that you can actively learn to practice patience? Just like physical muscles, it requires going to the gym. And sometimes, you may go to the gym and you just work out and you expect, okay, great, like, is that it? Did I achieve my goals? And it takes a long time, so you've got to practice it. And some of those practical rhythms, some ways that you can build more patience into your family culture, are protecting the margins of your schedule. making sure that you are not overscheduled, because if you're overscheduled, you're naturally going to say, hurry up, we've got to go, let's go, and then you can't find what you need. So protecting that margin is so important. Giving yourself enough transition time, making sure that you are not overscheduled and overstimulated, that is a surefire way to trigger impatience. Another thing you can do is practice waiting together. So wait, maybe without your phone if you're in line, or if you're in the restaurant. Don't fill in the gap. Just stay present in boredom instead of just grabbing your device and having that instant gratification. That is really important. When we're thinking about patience, we've got to shift our mindset and see waiting as an opportunity rather than an inconvenience. I mean, we've said this again from James, let patience have its perfect work, that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. Waiting is not wasted time. You're actively growing spiritually in that moment where you're learning to wait with patience. You're learning to recognize that God's timing is better than your own. You're learning to frame challenges as an opportunity. That's so important. Another great practical thing to do is just to practice pausing. Practice the pause. This is something that is widely talked about in psychology, but it is also in scripture. But just pause before you react. Just learn to count to 3. Just learn to take a breath. Just learn to ask yourself a question. Am I responding in love or in frustration? And just count to 5 before you respond. That is really, really helpful to do. You can also set some long-term goals. If you're feeling impatient with a struggle that your child's having, thinking, how can we focus on who are they becoming? What am I doing to help them in this time? Not just fix their behavior today, not just make sure that I'm not inconvenienced, but focus on who they are becoming. And we can do that by prioritizing connection over a quick fix. Learning that it's okay. We'll try again tomorrow. We'll try again. That is okay to do. We have got to also remove some of the cultural crutches that we have that make us impatient, that are working against us, that are trying to condition us for instant gratification. So some of those things that just make us have no tolerance for patience is limiting our screen time. Because if we have continual screen time, you've got autoplay, you've got notifications, you've got to learn to delay those small gratifications deliberately. Give your kids the opportunity to wait for something. Make them save their allowance for their toys. Make them wait 24 hours after you add to cart to see, do you really need that? Or are you just going to be standing in the return lines? What are ways that you can do that? What are ways that you can slow down your meals, that you can have more family conversation? What are ways that you can model patience in